She had given him everything: her heart, her body, her wolf, her very soul. And in return, the Alpha King had stood before his court with another woman at his side and declared, "This is my true family." Seren had not screamed. She had not wept. She had simply placed her hand over her stomach where his child grew, a secret she had been waiting to tell him that very night. And she had walked out of the great hall of Valdris without looking back. The whispers followed her like wolves trailing wounded prey. Did you see her face? She actually believed he loved her. How pathetic. She was never one of us. They were right about one thing. She had believed him. When he had taken her as his mate. When he had marked her throat with his teeth and whispered that she was his forever, she had believed every word. She had been a fool. But Seren was not merely a discarded mate. She was something far more dangerous, something the Alpha King had never discovered, something that would have changed everything had she trusted him enough to reveal it. Now that secret would leave with her, along with the heir growing in her womb. 3 years later, the Alpha King would find her. He would stand before the child he never knew existed, a boy with his silver eyes and his mother's quiet strength, and he would finally understand the magnitude of what he had destroyed. But understanding would not be enough, because the curse that had begun the night he denied her had already taken root in his blood. And the only one who could save him was the woman he had publicly humiliated, the woman who had every reason to let him die. Neither of them understood yet that his betrayal had been a lie. And the truth, when it finally emerged, would burn down everything they thought they knew. The great hall of Valdris had never looked more beautiful, and Seren had never felt more invisible. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across 500 guests dressed in silks and velvets. The finest wolves from every territory in the realm gathered to celebrate the winter solstice. The air was thick with competing scents, ambition and desire, political maneuvering masked by perfume and expensive wine. Seren stood near a pillar at the edge of the crowd, watching her mate command the room. Theron, Alpha King of Valdris, the most powerful wolf in 7 territories, her husband. Even now, after 2 years of marriage, the sight of him made her breath catch. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with hair the color of midnight and eyes like molten silver. When he moved, people stepped aside instinctively, not from fear alone, but from the sheer gravitational pull of his presence. He was laughing at something a foreign dignitary said, his smile sharp and practiced, and Seren remembered when that smile had been soft, had been real, and had been only for her. She touched her stomach beneath the flowing fabric of her gown. Tonight, she would tell him. After the guests departed, after the politics concluded, she would share the news that had consumed her thoughts for 3 weeks. She was carrying his heir. The royal healers had confirmed it just that morning. A strong heartbeat, they had said. A healthy pup. Seren had spent the entire day floating through her duties, imagining his reaction. Theron had spoken of children before, in those rare, quiet moments when the crown felt less heavy. He wanted a family, he wanted legacy, and now she could give him both. "You look like a woman with a secret." Seren startled at the voice. Lady Ravenna stood beside her, elegant and cold in a gown of deep burgundy. The king's stepmother had never liked Seren. She made no effort to hide it. "Just enjoying the celebration," Seren replied carefully. "Are you?" Ravenna's smile did not reach her eyes. "You should be at your mate's side, not lurking in shadows. People will talk. Let them talk." Ravenna's expression flickered with something Seren could not identify. "Indeed. They certainly will after tonight." Before Seren could ask what she meant, a horn sounded. The crowd fell silent. Theron had moved to the raised platform at the front of the hall, and he was not alone. A woman stood beside him. Tall, golden-haired, breathtakingly beautiful. Seren recognized her immediately. Lysandra of the Eastern Province, daughter of the most powerful alpha outside the royal bloodline. There had been rumors once that Theron would marry her, before he had chosen Seren instead. My honored guests, Theron's voice carried through the hall, deep and commanding. I have an announcement. Seren's heart began to pound. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the way the air shifted, in the way Ravenna was watching her with barely concealed satisfaction. Theron placed his hand on Lysandra's shoulder. The gesture was intimate, possessive. The kind of touch he had once reserved only for Seren. For too long, he said, I have been burdened by a mistake, a marriage made in haste, regretted at leisure. Tonight I correct that error. The room tilted. Seren gripped the pillar for support. Lysandra has always been my intended, Theron continued. My true match. My true family. He looked directly at Seren then, and there was nothing in his pale gray gaze. No warmth, no recognition, no apology. Just cold, absolute dismissal. The woman who currently holds the title of queen is no longer welcome in this court. Whispers erupted. Gasps of shock, murmurs of scandal, and a few poorly concealed laughs. 500 wolves turned to stare at Seren, and she felt every single gaze like a blade. She waited for Theron to take it back, to say this was a test, a cruel joke, anything. But he had already turned away, his hand still resting on Lysandra's shoulder, his attention fixed on the golden woman beside him. 2 years, 2 years of giving him everything, and this was her reward. Seren released the pillar. She straightened her spine, and without a single word, without a single tear, she walked toward the great doors. The crowd parted for her, not out of respect, but out of morbid curiosity. She heard the whispers intensify. She is actually leaving. She has nowhere to go. Her family disowned her when she mated him. She has nothing. They were wrong. She had something none of them knew about. She had his child. At the threshold, Seren paused. She did not turn around. She simply placed her hand over her stomach one final time and stepped into the winter night. Behind her, the great doors closed with a sound like a coffin lid falling shut, and the Alpha King never even watched her go. The cold hit her like a physical force. Seren had not stopped to collect a cloak. She had not stopped for anything. She had simply walked through the castle gates, past the guards who stared at her in confusion, and into the snow-covered darkness beyond. Her wolf stirred inside her, restless and wounded. It wanted to howl, to rage, to turn back and tear out the throat of the golden woman who had taken her place. But Seren forced it down. She could not afford to lose control. Not now. Not with the life growing inside her. The road to the village was 3 miles through forest. Seren knew it well. She had walked it many times in the early days of her marriage, before the court had demanded all her attention, before she had begun to feel like a prisoner in silk. Her feet moved mechanically. Left, right, left again. The snow soaked through her delicate slippers within minutes, numbing her toes. Her breath came in white clouds that dissipated into nothing. The trees pressed close on either side, their branches heavy with ice. She thought of Theron's face as he had spoken those words. My true family. Had there been hesitation? Had there been pain hidden beneath the coldness? She wanted to believe so. She wanted to believe the man who had held her through nightmares, who had whispered promises against her skin, who had marked her as his own, could not simply discard her without feeling anything at all. But his eyes had been empty. And that emptiness terrified her more than anger ever could. A cramp seized her stomach. Seren stumbled, catching herself against a tree trunk. Her hand pressed against her abdomen, panic flooding her chest. No, she whispered. Please, not now. She forced herself to breathe. The cramp eased. The baby's presence remained. that faint warmth that had become her constant companion since the healers had confirmed her pregnancy. It was still there, still alive, still hers. She had to keep moving. The village appeared through the trees, a cluster of humble cottages with smoke rising from chimneys. Seren had one destination in mind. A small house at the edge of the settlement, where a woman named Marin lived alone. Marin had been Seren's nursemaid once, before everything had changed. Before Seren's parents had died in the territory wars, before she had been taken in by distant relatives who saw her only as a burden, before Theron had noticed her at a gathering and declared her his mate. Marin had retired to this village years ago, content with her quiet life away from court politics. Seren prayed she would answer the door. The cottage was dark when she reached it. No candle in the window, no sign of movement within. Seren knocked anyway, her frozen fingers barely feeling the contact with wood. Silence. She knocked again. Harder. Marin, please. It is Seren. A long pause. Then a shuffling sound from inside, and the door cracked open to reveal a weathered face and suspicious eyes. Child? Marin's voice was hoarse with sleep. What in the name of the moon are you doing here? Seren opened her mouth to explain, but the words would not come. The cold, the shock, the betrayal, all of it crashed over her at once. Her legs buckled. Marin caught her before she hit the ground. When Seren woke, she was lying in a narrow bed, covered with thick quilts that smelled of lavender and wood smoke. A fire crackled nearby. She was warm, impossibly warm after the frozen nightmare of the forest. Easy. Marin's hand pressed gently against her shoulder. Do not try to move yet. You nearly froze to death out there. The baby, Seren gasped. Is the baby? Marin's eyes widened. Baby? You are with child? Please. Seren gripped the older woman's wrist. Please tell me I did not lose it. Marin hesitated, then pressed her palm against Seren's stomach. She was not a healer, but she had helped birth enough pups in her lifetime to know what to look for. After a moment, her expression softened. The child is strong, she said quietly. Stronger than it should be, given what you just endured. You are fortunate. Seren exhaled, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She had held them back through everything, the humiliation, the walk through the forest, the cold that had seeped into her bones. But now they came in a flood she could not control. Marin held her while she wept. When the storm finally passed, Seren lay back against the pillow and stared at the ceiling. I cannot go back, she whispered. He cast me out, in front of everyone. He called another woman his true family. The Alpha King did this? Marin's voice carried barely restrained fury. After everything you gave him? I was a fool to believe he loved me. You were a woman who trusted her mate. That is not foolishness. That is what the bond demands. Marin stood abruptly, pacing toward the fire. Something is wrong here. I saw him look at you, child. At your mating ceremony, at the coronation. That man was devoted to you. Then where did that devotion go? Marin had no answer. Seren closed her eyes. She could feel the baby's heartbeat now, faint but steady, a rhythm that matched her own. This child was all she had left, and she would protect it, no matter the cost. I need to disappear, she said. If Theron knows I carry his heir, he will take the child from me. He will raise it with her, with Lysandra. Marin turned back, her expression troubled. Where will you go? Somewhere he cannot find me. Somewhere beyond his reach. There is no such place, child. He is the Alpha King. His reach extends across every territory. Seren sat up slowly, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. For the first time since she had left the Great Hall, something other than despair flickered in her chest. Determination. Then I will create one, she said. And that night, As Marin helped her gather supplies and plan her escape, Seren felt something ancient stir inside her. Something that had slept since her birth. Something that the Alpha King had never discovered because she had been too afraid to tell him. Her secret. Her true nature. The very thing that could have changed everything had she trusted him enough to reveal it. But that time had passed. And now her secret would be her weapon. 3 years later. The village of Thornwick existed on no official map. It sat in a valley between two mountain ranges, accessible only by a single winding path that disappeared entirely during the winter months. The wolves who lived there had no alpha, no hierarchy, and no connection to the territories beyond the peaks. They were outcasts, exiles, and survivors. They asked no questions and kept no records. It was the perfect place to vanish. Seren stood at the window of her cottage, watching her son play in the meadow below. Emmerich was 3 years old now, small for his age but fierce in spirit. His hair was dark like his father's, his eyes that same striking silver. Sometimes, when he laughed, Seren saw Theron so clearly that her chest ached. But Emmerich was hers. Every stubborn tantrum, every curious question, every time he curled against her at night and whispered that he loved her. He was hers, and she would die before she let anyone take him. "Mama!" Emmerich's voice carried across the meadow. "Mama, look!" He was holding up a butterfly, cupped gently in his small hands. Even at 3, he had an instinct for gentleness that surprised her. His wolf had not yet manifested, but she could feel it beneath his skin, waiting. When it emerged, it would be powerful, perhaps as powerful as his father's. That thought terrified her. "Beautiful," she called back, forcing warmth into her voice. "Let it go now. It needs to fly." Emmerich opened his hands, watching the butterflies spiral upward with wonder in his gaze. Then he went back to chasing grasshoppers, his laughter ringing through the valley like bells. Seren turned from the window. The cottage was small, but comfortable, built with her own hands during her first months in Thornwick. She had learned to chop wood, to hunt, to mend clothing and preserve food. Skills she had never needed as a queen. Skills that had kept her and Emmerich alive. The villagers had accepted her without question. She had given them a false name, Sarah, and claimed to be a widow fleeing an abusive pack. They had nodded in understanding. Many of them had similar stories. No one pressed for details. She had built a life here, a quiet life, free from politics and cruelty, and the memory of winter storm eyes that had looked at her with nothing. But lately, the dreams had returned. Theron, standing in the great hall, his hand on Lysandra's shoulder. Theron, watching her walk away, without a flicker of emotion. And then, stranger visions. Theron alone in his chambers, gripping his chest as if something inside him was breaking. Theron staring at a miniature portrait of her face, his expression twisted with something that looked almost like agony. She told herself they were just nightmares, manifestations of trauma, nothing more. But her wolf stirred every time she woke from them, whining as if it sensed something she could not. The dreams were getting stronger, and she did not know why. A knock at the door shattered her thoughts. Seren tensed. Visitors were rare in Thornwick. Most of the villagers respected her privacy, stopping only to trade goods or share news of the outside world. She moved to the door slowly, her hand brushing the knife hidden beneath her apron. 3 years of peace had not dulled her instincts. She would never be caught unprepared again. "Who is there?" "Marin." Seren's tension melted. She opened the door to find the old woman standing on her threshold, travel-worn and breathing hard. Marin had visited 3 times over the years, bringing news and supplies from beyond the mountains. Each journey took weeks, and she was getting too old for such treks. "What are you doing here?" Seren pulled her inside. You were not supposed to come until autumn. Marin's face was pale. I had to warn you. The Alpha King is searching. Seren's blood turned to ice. He has been searching since I left. His men never come close. This is different. Marin gripped her arm, her fingers trembling. He is not sending men anymore, child. He is coming himself. The words did not make sense. Theron had a kingdom to rule, a new mate at his side, territories to manage. He would not abandon all of that to personally hunt for a woman he had publicly discarded. Why? Seren whispered. Why would he come himself? Because he is dying. The room tilted. Seren gripped the table for support. What? Something is wrong with him. Marin's voice dropped lower. The rumors say he collapsed during a council meeting 6 months ago. Since then, he has grown weaker and weaker. The healers cannot identify the cause. Some say it is poison. Others say it is a curse. A curse. The word echoed in Seren's mind, triggering memories she had tried to bury. The old stories her mother used to tell. The warnings about the bond between true mates. And Lysandra? Seren forced out. His true family? Marin's expression twisted. That is the strangest part. They say he never mated her. The announcement was made, but the claiming never happened. She still bears no mark. Seren's heart stuttered. That is impossible. I saw them together. He declared her his family before the entire court. I only know what I have heard, child. And what I heard is that the Alpha King has been obsessively searching for you since the day you disappeared. He has spent fortunes, sent hundreds of scouts. And now that he is dying, the search has become desperate. Seren moved to the window. Emmerich was still playing in the meadow, oblivious to the danger circling closer. Her beautiful boy. Her innocent son. How close is he? Marin hesitated. A trading caravan passed through the outer valley 2 days ago. One of the merchants was asking questions about a woman matching your description. He offered gold for information. 2 days. He could be here any moment. Seren closed her eyes, her mind racing. She could run again. Take Emmerich deeper into the wilderness, find another hidden village, and start over. But how long could she keep fleeing? How many years before her son asked why they could never stay anywhere, why they had no family, why his mother always looked over her shoulder? And if Theron was truly dying? No. She crushed that thought before it could take root. He had made his choice. He had called another woman his true family while she stood pregnant with his heir. Whatever curse consumed him now was not her concern. But her wolf disagreed. It howled inside her, desperate and anguished, straining toward a bond she had thought severed. The mate bond. After 3 years, it should have faded. It should have died completely. Instead, it burned brighter than ever. What will you do? Marin asked quietly. Seren watched her son release another butterfly into the sky. His pale gray eyes caught the sunlight, and for a moment, he looked exactly like his father. I do not know, she admitted. But if Theron wants to find me, he will have to earn every step. And if he threatens my son, dying or not, I will destroy him myself. The words felt hollow, but they were all she had. That night, after Emmerich was asleep and Marin had settled in the spare room, Seren sat alone by the fire. She pulled out the one item she had kept from her former life, hidden in a box beneath the floorboards, a small pendant on a silver chain. Theron had given it to her on their mating night. It held a lock of his hair, bound with hers, a traditional symbol of eternal connection. She had told herself she kept it for sentimental weakness. But now, holding it in her palm, she felt the truth pulse through her. The bond was still alive. And somewhere beyond the mountains, the Alpha King was coming. The scouts arrived 3 days before the king. Seren spotted them from the ridge above the village. 2 men in unmarked clothing trying too hard to look like travelers. They asked questions at the trading post, purchased supplies they did not need, and watched the cottages with the careful attention of hunters tracking prey. She kept Emmerich inside, telling him stories and playing games to distract from his restlessness. He did not understand why he could not go to the meadow. He cried the first day, sulked the second, and by the third, had accepted the confinement with the resignation of a child who trusted his mother completely. That trust gutted her. How long before she shattered it by uprooting his life again? On the fourth morning, Seren woke to silence. The village was never silent. There were always sounds: chickens clucking, neighbors calling to one another, children laughing on their way to the schoolhouse. But today, nothing. Just the wind through the valley, carrying a scent that made her wolf freeze. Him. Seren moved to the window, her heart pounding. The main path into Thornwick was visible from her cottage, a winding trail that descended from the mountain pass. And there, at the edge of the village, stood a group of riders. At their head was Theron. Even from this distance she would have known him anywhere. The way he sat on his horse, the breadth of his shoulders, the dark hair that fell past his collar. He was thinner than she remembered, his posture less commanding, but the power radiating from him was unmistakable. The entire village seemed to hold its breath in his presence. Seren stepped back from the window, pressing herself against the wall. Her hands were shaking. 3 years of running, of hiding, of building a life from nothing, and he had found her, anyway. "Mama?" She spun to find Emmerich standing in the doorway of his small bedroom, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Those eyes. Theron's eyes. The resemblance had never felt more dangerous. "Go back to bed, my love." She forced calm into her voice. "It is still early." "I heard horses." He padded toward her, drawn by curiosity. "Are people coming to visit?" "Emmerich." She knelt before him, gripping his shoulders. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. You must stay in your room today. Do not come out, no matter what you hear. Can you do that for Mama?" His small face crumpled with confusion. "But why?" "Because I am asking you to trust me." She kissed his forehead, breathing in the scent of him. "Please, my brave boy, stay hidden." Something in her tone must have reached him, because he nodded solemnly. "I will be brave." "I know you will." She watched him retreat to his room, closing the door behind him. Then she stood, straightened her dress, and prepared to face the man who had destroyed her. The knock came minutes later. Heavy. Commanding. The knock of a king who expected doors to open. Seren did not open it. "I know you are in there." Theron's voice was rougher than she remembered, scraped raw by something she could not identify. "Seren, please. Please." He had never said please to her before, not once in 2 years of marriage. The word sounded foreign in his mouth. "Go away." Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "You are not welcome here." "I am not leaving until we speak." "We have nothing to speak about. You made your choice. You declared another woman your true family. Whatever you want from me now, you will not get it." "Seren." His voice cracked on her name. Actually cracked, like something inside him was breaking. "I know what you must think. I know what it looked like. But I need you to understand that nothing about that night was real." She laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. "I stood in that hall. I watched you put your hand on her shoulder. I heard every word. And every word was a lie." The conviction in his voice made her pause. Against her better judgment, against every instinct screaming at her to stay hidden, she moved toward the door. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I am dying." The words were flat, empty of self-pity. "The curse took hold the moment you left. It has been killing me slowly for 3 years. The healers say I have weeks left, perhaps days. I did not come here to reclaim you or force you back to court. I came to tell you the truth before I no longer can." Seren's hand hovered over the door handle. Her wolf was howling inside her, desperate to reach him, to see him, to verify that her mate was real and present after years of aching absence. But her human mind remembered everything: the humiliation, the emptiness in his eyes, the way he had watched her walk away without a flicker of emotion. "The truth," she repeated. "You want to tell me the truth?" "Yes." "Then answer one question first." "Anything." She closed her eyes, steeling herself. "That night, when I walked out of the great hall, did you feel anything at all? Or was I truly nothing to you?" Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I felt everything. I felt my heart being ripped from my chest. I felt my wolf trying to tear its way out of my body to chase you. I felt like I was dying, Seren, and I have been dying every day since." A sob caught in her throat. She pressed her forehead against the door, feeling the wood grain against her skin, wishing it could absorb the pain that threatened to drown her. "Then why?" she breathed. "Why did you do it? Open the door, please. Let me explain." Her fingers found the handle. Slowly, against every ounce of self-preservation she possessed, she pulled it open. Theron stood on her threshold, and the sight of him stole her breath. He was diminished. That was the only word for it. The powerful, commanding king she remembered had been hollowed out, replaced by a man who looked like he had not slept in months. His cheekbones were too sharp, his skin too pale, dark circles carved beneath those winter storm eyes. Ice crystals clung to his collar and his hair, as if winter itself had taken residence in his body. But it was his eyes that undid her. They were not empty anymore. They were filled with so much pain, so much longing, so much desperate hope that she could not breathe. "Seren," he whispered, and he reached for her. "Mama?" They both froze. Emmerich stood in the hallway behind her, having ignored her instructions with the stubborn determination he had inherited from both his parents. He stared at the stranger in the doorway, his small face scrunched with confusion. "Who is that man?" Seren watched Theron's gaze shift to their son. Watched his eyes widen, then fill with tears. Watched the Alpha King of Valdris take in the dark hair, the silver eyes, and the stubborn set of a small jaw that perfectly mirrored his own. "He is," Seren began, but she had no words. Theron sank to his knees. Not from weakness this time, but from the sheer weight of what he was seeing. A child. His child. The heir he never knew existed. "Seren." His voice shattered completely. "What have I done?" She had no answer for him. Because in that moment, watching the most powerful man in 7 territories weep before a 3-year-old boy who did not know his father's name, she realized that nothing about the past 3 years had been what she believed. And the truth, whatever it was, would change everything. Emmerich did not understand why the strange man was crying. He tugged at Seren's dress, his silver eyes wide with concern. "Mama, why is he sad? Did someone hurt him?" "Yes," Seren thought. "I hurt him by leaving, and he hurt me by making me believe I had to." But she could not say that to a 3-year-old. So instead she knelt beside her son, brushing hair from his forehead with trembling fingers. "He is just tired from his journey," she said softly. "Why do you not go back to your room and play with your wooden animals? I will bring you breakfast soon." "But I want to meet him." Emmerich's curiosity was insatiable, another trait he had inherited from his father. "He has eyes like mine." The observation hit Seren like a blow. She glanced at Theron, who had risen from his knees but remained frozen in the doorway, his gaze fixed on the boy with an intensity that bordered on worship. "Please, Emmerich." Her voice wavered. "Just a little longer. I promise I will explain later." Something in her tone must have reached him, because he nodded reluctantly and retreated down the hallway. The sound of his door closing echoed through the cottage like a verdict. Seren stood slowly, facing her former mate. The silence between them was unbearable. 3 years. Theron's voice was hollow. You have been raising my son for 3 years, and I never knew he existed. How could I tell you? The anger she had buried for so long came rushing back. You cast me out. You humiliated me in front of the entire court. You chose another woman as your family. I chose nothing. He stepped forward, and she stepped back instinctively. The hurt that flashed across his face was almost enough to make her regret the movement. Almost. Seren, I need you to understand. What happened that night was not my choice. You spoke the words yourself. I heard them. Yes. He closed his eyes, his jaw tight with frustration. And I have been trying to undo them ever since. Seren shook her head, unwilling to let herself hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope had nearly destroyed her once before. You should leave, she said flatly. You have seen that I am alive. You have seen that you have a son. Now go back to Valdris and live whatever remains of your life with your true family. She was never my family. Theron's voice rose with desperation. Lysandra was a puppet, a pawn in a scheme I did not see until it was too late. My stepmother orchestrated everything. Ravenna wanted me to mate Lysandra because she could control her, use her to influence the throne. When I refused, when I chose you instead, she found another way. Seren went still. What are you saying? I am saying I was poisoned, not with something that would kill me quickly, but with something far worse. He pulled at his collar, revealing skin that was tinged with blue, frost creeping along his veins like a living thing. It is called Winterbane. It attacks the bond between true mates. It makes the victim feel nothing for the one they love most, while slowly freezing them from the inside out. The ice on his skin. The unnatural cold that had always seemed to cling to him. She had dismissed it as stress, as the burden of kingship. But this? Ravenna did this to you? She slipped it into my wine the night of the solstice celebration. By the time I realized something was wrong, the damage was done. His voice cracked with self-loathing. I watched myself say those words to you, Seren. I watched myself call another woman my family while my wolf screamed inside me. I could not stop it. The poison had severed my connection to everything I felt. But you looked at me. Tears burned in her eyes. You looked right at me, and there was nothing. Because the winter bane had taken everything. My love, my warmth, my humanity. All I had left was ice. He reached for her again, and this time she did not pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek, and the chill of his touch made her gasp. But it could not kill the bond itself. Even poisoned, even frozen, some part of me knew you were my mate. That is why I have been searching for you. That is why the curse has been killing me. I do not understand. The winter bane is designed to destroy true mate bonds. But instead of severing ours, it simply buried it. The bond kept fighting to survive, and the poison kept fighting to kill it. The war between them has been destroying my body for 3 years. He pressed her hand against his chest, where his heart beat sluggishly beneath the frost. I am dying because I denied you, because the part of me that loved you refused to let go. Seren felt the truth of his words pulsing through their connection. It was faint, damaged, but still there. Still alive after everything. Why did you not fight her? She whispered. Why did you not tell someone? I tried. Anguish twisted his features. The morning after you left, I woke with the poison still clouding my mind. I could not remember why I had said those things. I went to Ravenna, demanded answers, but she had covered her tracks too well. By the time I understood what she had done, you had vanished completely. And Lysandra? She just went along with it? Lysandra believed she was helping me. His laugh was bitter. Ravenna told her I was under a curse that made me mate the wrong woman. She said the only way to save me was to pretend to be my chosen mate until the bond with you faded naturally. Lysandra thought she was being noble. Seren pulled her hand away, pacing toward the window. Outside, the village continued its quiet rhythms, unaware of the earthquake happening inside her cottage. "This is too much," she said. "You expect me to believe that everything, all of it, was a manipulation? I expect you to feel the truth through our bond." She did feel it. That was the problem. Every word he spoke resonated with a sincerity she could not deny. But 3 years of pain, 3 years of believing herself worthless and discarded, could not be erased by a single conversation. "Even if I believed you," she said slowly, "it does not change what happened. I walked out of that hall pregnant with your heir. I gave birth alone in a stranger's cottage. I raised our son without help, without resources, without anyone to turn to. You may not have chosen to hurt me, but I was still hurt. I know." He moved closer, and she felt the cold radiating from his body like winter itself. "I know I cannot undo the damage. I know I cannot give you back those years. But I can tell you this, Seren. You are my true family. You always were. And I will spend whatever time I have left proving it to you." Before she could respond, a scream pierced the air. "Emmerich!" Seren bolted toward his room, her heart in her throat. She threw open the door to find her son pressed against the far wall, his eyes wide with terror, staring at the window. A face was there. Pale, twisted, inhuman. Eyes that glowed with sickly green light. "The boy," it hissed. "The heir. Ravenna sends her regards." Theron was beside her in an instant. He threw himself between the window and their son, a snarl ripping from his throat. The temperature in the room plummeted as ice crackled along his arms, his curse responding to the threat. "Get Emmerich out of here," he commanded. "Now!" Seren grabbed her son, pressing his face against her shoulder so he could not see the creature at the window. Behind her, she heard the crash of breaking glass, a roar that shook the walls, and then a terrible silence. She did not look back. She could not afford to. She ran. They ran until Emmerich's weight made Seren's arms burn. The forest around Thornwick was dense and dark, filled with hiding places she had mapped during her years of paranoid preparation. She knew every hollow tree, every cave, and every abandoned hunter's shelter. She had planned for this moment, had always known that someday the past might catch up to her. She had just never imagined it would wear the face of a nightmare. Emmerich clung to her, whimpering but not crying. He was so brave, her little boy, so impossibly brave for someone who had just seen a monster at his window. "Mama, what was that thing?" "Something bad," she panted, ducking beneath a low branch. "But I will not let it hurt you. I promise." "What about the man with eyes like mine? Will the bad thing hurt him?" The question pierced her heart. Even in terror, her son was thinking of the stranger who was also his father. She did not know how to answer. A cave appeared ahead, hidden behind a waterfall that had frozen into a curtain of ice. Seren pushed through the bitter spray and carried Emmerich into the darkness beyond. The space was small but secure, invisible from outside unless you knew exactly where to look. She set her son down, wrapping him in her cloak for warmth. "Stay here. Do not make a sound. I am going to check if we were followed. Do not leave me." His silver eyes shimmered with tears. "Please, Mama. I will never leave you." She kissed his forehead fiercely. "I will be right outside. I just need to make sure we are safe." Before he could protest further, she slipped back through the waterfall and into the night. The forest was silent. Too silent. No owls calling, no wind stirring the branches, no small creatures rustling through the underbrush. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy, uneven, accompanied by labored breathing. Seren pressed herself against a tree, her hand finding the knife strapped to her thigh. If the creature had followed them, she would fight it. She would die fighting it if necessary. But she would not let it reach her son. A figure emerged from the darkness. Tall, broad-shouldered, covered in frost that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Theron. He stumbled against a boulder, barely catching himself. The ice coating his body had spread further, covering half his face now, one eye frozen completely shut. But he was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was still alive. Seren. Her name emerged as a rasp. Where? Here. She ran to him, catching his arm before he could collapse. His skin burned with cold, so intense it hurt to touch. What happened? The creature. Dead. I tore its throat out before the ice took me completely. He coughed, and frost billowed from his lips. But there will be more. That was only a scout. Ravenna knows where you are. She will send everything she has. Then we run. We disappear again. You cannot outrun her. He gripped her shoulders, his frozen fingers biting into her flesh. She has been planning this for years. The moment she learned you were pregnant, she began searching. She wants the heir, Seren. A child of the Alpha King's bloodline that she can raise and control. How does she know about Emmerich? I do not know. A spy, perhaps. Someone in her network who tracked your movements. His breathing was growing shallower, the frost creeping toward his throat. Listen to me. There is only one way to stop this. The Winter Bane, the curse that is killing me, it was created by blood magic. The only thing that can break it is... He trailed off, his remaining eye flickering with pain. What? Seren shook him, desperate. What can break it? The fire of a true mate. He laughed weakly, the sound edged with despair. An old legend. I did not even believe it until I began researching cures. They say that a true mate's inner fire, the essence of their wolf, can burn away any curse, but only if the bond is complete. Our bond is not complete, Seren whispered. We claimed each other, but you never accepted the full merge. He nodded slowly. Because I was poisoned before we could. The Winter Bane prevented it. Seren's mind raced. The full merge was the deepest level of the mate bond, a spiritual joining that went beyond physical marking. It required complete trust, complete vulnerability, and complete openness between both mates. Most couples achieved it naturally over years of marriage. She and Theron had never had the chance. Even if I wanted to help you, she said carefully, I do not know if I can. The bond between us is damaged. I have spent 3 years believing you did not want me. I know. His frozen hand found her face, his thumb tracing her cheek despite the cold. I am not asking you to save me, Seren. I lost that right when I let Ravenna poison me, when I failed to protect you from her schemes. I am asking you to save our son. What do you mean? The curse in my blood will pass to Emmerich when I die. Ravenna made certain of it. She wanted insurance, a way to control the heir even if she could not control me. Agony twisted his features. If I die without breaking the curse, our son will carry it for the rest of his life. He will never be able to love anyone without it destroying him. The words hit her like a physical blow. Emmerich. Her bright, curious, gentle little boy. Condemned to a life without love because of a poison he had never asked for. No. The word came out as a growl, something primal and fierce rising in her chest. I will not let that happen. Then you know what must be done. She did know. The answer had been inside her all along, buried beneath years of fear and self-doubt. The secret she had kept from everyone, including Theron. The truth about what she really was. There is something I never told you, she said slowly. Something I was too afraid to reveal when we were married. Theron watched her, his frozen eye reflecting the moonlight. Tell me now. Seren closed her eyes. When she opened them again, flames danced in her pupils. "My grandmother was a phoenix shifter," she said. "The bloodline was supposed to be extinct. My mother hid it, taught me to suppress it, and warned me that the world would hunt me if they ever discovered what I was. So I buried it deep, pretended to be an ordinary wolf, but the fire has always been inside me." Theron stared at her, his expression unreadable beneath the frost. "You are a phoenix. Half phoenix. The fire runs in my blood, but I have never allowed it to fully manifest. I was too afraid." She laughed bitterly. "I was afraid of what you would think if you knew. I was afraid you would see me as a monster." "A monster?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "Seren, you are the most beautiful thing I have ever known. Fire or not, you are my mate, my true family. The only thing I see when I look at you is the woman I have loved since the moment I first caught her scent across a crowded hall." The sincerity in his words melted something inside her. Something she had frozen along with her heart the night she walked out of Valdris. "You truly mean that?" "I have never meant anything more." She moved closer, feeling the cold radiating from his body like a barrier. But beneath the ice, she could sense the bond pulsing. Weak, damaged, but still fighting to survive. Just like both of them. "If I do this," she said quietly, "if I try to complete the merge and burn away the curse, there is no guarantee it will work. The fire might not be strong enough. It might kill us both. Then we die together." He pressed his forehead against hers, and even through the frost she felt the warmth of his spirit. "I would rather burn with you than freeze alone." Seren let her fire rise. It started in her chest, a heat that spread outward through her limbs, her fingers, and her skin. The air around her began to shimmer. Steam rose where her warmth met his cold. And then, for the first time in her life, she let the phoenix fully emerge. Flames erupted across her body, golden and fierce, illuminating the frozen forest like dawn breaking through night. She felt her wolf merge with something older, something primal, and something that had been sleeping in her bloodline for generations. She wrapped her arms around Theron and let her fire consume them both. His scream of pain became a cry of release. The ice coating his body began to crack, shatter, and melt. Steam billowed around them in great clouds, obscuring the forest, obscuring everything except the two of them locked together in fire and ice. The bond between them blazed to life. Seren felt it snap into place, complete and unbreakable, a connection so deep that she could not tell where her soul ended and his began. She felt his love, his regret, his desperate hope. She felt 3 years of searching, of despair, of longing for the mate he believed he had lost forever. And she let him feel her, too. The pain, the betrayal, the lonely nights nursing their son while wondering why she had not been enough. The fury she had buried beneath survival. The love she had never stopped feeling, no matter how hard she tried. When the flames finally died, they collapsed together in the melted snow. Theron's skin was warm, not feverishly warm, but warm the way a living wolf should be. The frost was gone. The blue tinge had vanished from his veins. His eyes, both of them, opened to meet hers. "Seren," he breathed, and his voice was whole again. She wanted to respond. She wanted to tell him that she felt it too, that the bond between them was singing with a completeness she had never imagined possible. But before she could speak, darkness claimed her. Seren woke to warmth. Not the oppressive heat of fever, but something gentler. Sunlight streaming through an unfamiliar window, thick blankets wrapped around her body, and a presence beside her that made her wolf hum with contentment. She opened her eyes to find Theron watching her. He looked different. The gaunt, frost-covered man who had appeared at her door was gone, replaced by someone who resembled the husband she remembered. Color had returned to his cheeks. His eyes held light instead of emptiness. And when he smiled at her, tentative and hopeful, she felt it echo through their connection like a melody. "You have been unconscious for 2 days," he said quietly. "I was beginning to fear the fire had taken too much from you." 2 days. Seren sat up slowly, her muscles aching but functional. The room around her was unfamiliar, larger than her cottage, decorated with simple but expensive furnishings. "Where are we?" "An inn at the base of the mountains." Marin arranged it. Theron reached for her hand, and she let him take it. His touch was warm now, alive. "Emmerich is safe. He has been asking about you constantly." Emmerich. The thought of her son cut through the lingering fog in her mind. "I need to see him." "He is just down the hall, but first." Theron's expression grew serious. "There are things we need to discuss." Seren pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. Their connection hummed with completeness. But 3 years of pain could not be erased by a single night of fire. She needed answers before she could allow herself to feel anything else. "Ravenna," she said. "She sent that creature. She knows about Emmerich." "Yes." Theron's jaw tightened. "My scouts captured one of her spies yesterday." He confirmed what I suspected. "Ravenna has been tracking you since you left Valdris. She learned about Emmerich 2 years ago, but could not locate you until my own search grew desperate enough to draw attention." "So your search led her to us." The accusation hung between them. Theron flinched but did not deny it. "Yes," he admitted. "In my desperation to find you, I was careless. I offered rewards publicly, sent too many scouts, made too much noise. Ravenna simply followed the trail I created." Seren wanted to be angry. Part of her was angry. But she could feel his guilt through their bond, a weight so heavy it threatened to crush him. He had not meant to endanger their son. He had simply been a dying man searching for the only thing that could save him. "What does she want with Emmerich?" she asked finally. "Control of the bloodline." Theron rose from the bed, pacing toward the window. "My father had 2 sons. Me, born of his true mate, and my half-brother Kale, born of Ravenna. When my father died, the council chose me as his successor because the true mate bond carries stronger claims to the throne. Ravenna wanted Kale to be king. She has wanted it since the day he was born, but the laws were clear. A child of a true mate bond outranks all other heirs." Theron turned to face her, his expression grim. "Ravenna's plan was simple. Poison me to destroy my bond with you, then have me mate Lysandra and produce heirs she could control. But when you vanished, and I refused to complete the mating with Lysandra, she had to adapt." "Emmerich," Seren whispered. "If she controls my son, she controls the only legitimate heir to the throne. She could rule as regent until he comes of age, shaping him into whatever kind of king serves her interests." Theron's hands clenched at his sides. "I will die before I let that happen." "You almost did die." Seren stood crossing to him. "The curse. Is it truly broken?" "I believe so." He pressed her palm against his chest, where his heart beat strong and steady. "I have not felt this warm in 3 years. The ice is gone from my blood. But there is still the matter of the original poison." "What do you mean?" "The Winterbane is broken, but Ravenna still has more. As long as she lives, she can poison me again." "She can poison Emmerich?" His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "She has to be stopped. Permanently." Seren understood what he was saying. This was not simply about justice or revenge, it was about survival. As long as Ravenna drew breath, none of them would ever be safe. "Then we go to Valdris," she said. "We confront her." "We?" Theron's eyes widened. "Seren, I cannot ask you to." "You are not asking. I am telling." She gripped his shoulders, forcing him to meet her gaze. "That woman tried to destroy our bond. She sent a monster to take our son. Whatever happens next, I will be there to face it. For a long moment, Theron simply stared at her. Then something in his expression shifted, softened, filled with a love so fierce it made her breath catch. "I do not deserve you," he murmured. "Probably not." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "But you have me anyway." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, and for the first time in 3 years, Seren allowed herself to lean into her mate's embrace. The moment was shattered by a knock at the door. Marin's voice carried through the wood, urgent and breathless. "You need to come quickly, both of you. Something has happened." They found Marin in the inn's common room, her weathered face pale with shock. Beside her stood a woman Seren did not recognize, tall and golden-haired, dressed in traveling clothes that had seen better days. Lysandra. Seren's wolf snarled inside her, every instinct screaming to attack the woman who had stood at Theron's side while she was cast out. But something in Lysandra's expression made her pause. The other woman looked terrified. Not of them, but of something else entirely. "She arrived an hour ago," Marin explained. "She says she has information about Ravenna." "Why should we trust anything she says?" Seren demanded. Lysandra flinched. "Because I finally understand what I was part of. And because if I do not help you stop her, everyone I love will die." "Everyone you love?" Theron stepped forward, his voice cold. "You helped Ravenna destroy my marriage. You stood beside me while my true mate walked out of the Great Hall." "I know." Tears spilled down Lysandra's cheeks. "I know what I did. Ravenna told me you were under a curse, that the woman you had mated was somehow controlling you against your will. She said the only way to free you was to pretend to take her place until the false bond faded. And you believed her." "I loved you." The admission came out broken. "I had loved you since we were children. When Ravenna offered me a chance to save you, to finally be with you, I was too desperate to question it." Lysandra wiped her face with shaking hands. "But I know the truth now. Ravenna was using me. She never intended for you to actually mate me. She just needed me as a distraction while she searched for your real mate." "How do you know this?" Seren asked. Lysandra reached into her cloak and withdrew a bundle of letters, bound with black ribbon. "I found these in Ravenna's private study 3 days ago. They detail everything. The Winterbane poison, the plan to control your heir, even." She hesitated, looking at Seren with something like shame. "Even orders to have you killed once you gave birth." She wanted the child, but not the mother. Seren took the letters with numb fingers. The handwriting was elegant, precise, unmistakably Ravenna's. She skimmed the contents and felt her blood turn to ice. It was all there. Every manipulation, every lie, every calculated cruelty. Ravenna had been planning this for years, since before Seren had even met Theron. She had identified Seren as a threat the moment Theron first showed interest in her, and she had been working to destroy her ever since. "There is more," Lysandra said quietly. "Ravenna knows you broke the curse. Her spies reported it yesterday. She is not waiting for you to come to her anymore." Theron's expression darkened. "What do you mean?" "She is coming here. She left Valdris the moment her spy reported your location." Lysandra's voice trembled. "She is bringing Kael, and she is bringing something else. Something she called the Winter Heart." "What is the Winter Heart?" Seren demanded. "I do not know exactly. But the letters mention it as a weapon of last resort. Something that can freeze an entire bloodline, not just one person." Lysandra met her eyes, desperation plain on her face. "She is not coming to negotiate. She is coming to end this permanently." Seren looked at Theron. Through their bond, she felt his fear, his determination, and his fierce protectiveness of their son. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Hours," Lysandra replied. "She is less than a day behind me." "Hours. Hours to prepare for a confrontation that could destroy everything. Seren squared her shoulders. Then we have work to do. They spent the night preparing. Theron sent riders to rally wolves loyal to the crown, those who had grown suspicious of Ravenna's influence during his illness. Marin secured supplies and weapons from contacts in the surrounding villages. Seren sat with Emmerich, holding him close, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. "Are you scared, Mama?" he asked, his eyes too knowing for a child of 3. "A little," she admitted. "But I am also brave, and so are you." "Like a wolf." "Yes, my love, like a wolf." She tucked him into bed in the room she had claimed for them, singing softly until his breathing evened into sleep. Then she rose and found Theron waiting in the hallway, his expression tight with worry. "He should not be here for this," he said quietly. "If things go wrong..." "I know." Seren had already considered it. "Marin will take him deeper into the mountains at dawn. There is a village beyond the northern pass where no one will think to look. If we fail, she will raise him as her own." The thought of Emmerich growing up without her, without either parent, made her chest ache, but she would rather he live as an orphan than die as a pawn. "We will not fail." Theron took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "We have something Ravenna does not understand." "What is that?" "Each other." She wanted to believe him. Through their bond, she felt his certainty, his faith in what they shared. It was intoxicating after years of doubt. "There is something I need to tell you," she said. "About my fire." "The phoenix blood." "Yes. When I burned away your curse, I felt something change inside me. The power that has been sleeping since childhood." She paused, searching for words. "It is awake now. Fully awake. I do not know what that means or what I am capable of." Theron cupped her face in his hands. "Whatever you are capable of, we will discover it together. You are not alone anymore, Seren. You never have to be alone again." She rose on her toes and kissed him. It was their first real kiss since she had walked out of the Great Hall 3 years ago, and it felt like coming home. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and the bond between them sang with joy. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Seren rested her forehead against his. "I want to trust this," she whispered. "I want to trust you. But part of me is still waiting for it to be ripped away again." "I understand." His voice was thick with emotion. "You do not have to trust me completely yet. Just trust me enough to fight beside me tomorrow. The rest will come in time." She nodded slowly. It was more than she had been able to offer anyone in years. But for him, for the sake of their son, she would try. Dawn came too quickly. Marin departed with Emmerich before sunrise, the little boy sleepy and confused, but trusting his mother's instructions. Seren watched them disappear into the mountain mist, her heart breaking and mending with every step they took. "He will be safe," Theron said, standing beside her. "He has to be." She turned to face him. "Now, tell me the plan." They had decided to meet Ravenna at the crossroads below the mountains, neutral ground that offered no tactical advantage to either side. Lysandra had provided detailed information about Ravenna's forces. Roughly 30 guards plus Kale and the mysterious Winter Heart. Theron had assembled 40 wolves loyal to him, plus himself, Seren, and Lysandra. "The goal is not to start a war," Theron explained as they rode toward the crossroads. "If we can expose Ravenna publicly, present the letters as evidence, some of her supporters may turn. And if they do not, then we fight." His jaw set with determination. "But we fight smart. Ravenna's power comes from manipulation, not strength. If we can separate her from Kale, from her guards, she becomes vulnerable." "What about the Winterheart?" "I do not know." He admitted the uncertainty openly. Lysandra said it was a weapon, but she never saw it. "We will have to adapt." Seren touched the fire inside her, feeling it pulse with readiness. Whatever the winter heart was, she would burn it to ash if necessary. The crossroads appeared ahead, a wide clearing where 4 paths converged. And waiting there, arranged in perfect formation, was Ravenna's party. She was beautiful. That was the first thing Seren noticed. Even after everything, she could not deny it. Ravenna was tall and elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair and the kind of bone structure that made artists weep. She looked nothing like a villain. She looked like a queen. Beside her stood a young man who could only be Kale. He resembled Theron in build, but had his mother's coloring and sharp features. His expression was carefully neutral, but Seren caught something flickering in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or fear. And between them, carried by 2 guards on a platform of black iron, was a box. It was small, barely larger than a jewelry case, but the cold radiating from it was palpable even from 20 feet away. Frost crept along its surface, spreading across the guard's gloves, crystallizing in the air around it. The winter heart. "My dear stepson," Ravenna called, her voice carrying across the clearing. "You look remarkably well for a man who was dying just days ago, and you brought your little pet. How charming." "This ends today, Ravenna." Theron's voice rang with authority. "I have proof of your treachery. Letters in your own hand detailing the winterbane poison, the plot against my mate, the plan to control my heir." "Letters." Ravenna laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Letters can be forged. Everyone knows your mate is a manipulative creature who bewitched you with forbidden magic. She probably created those letters herself." "The letters came from your own study." Lysandra stepped forward, her chin raised despite her obvious fear. "I retrieved them myself. Every word is true." Ravenna's expression flickered with surprise, then hardened into contempt. "You foolish girl, I gave you everything. A place at court, the king's attention, a future beyond your insignificant province. And this is how you repay me? You used me. You lied to me. You made me complicit in destroying an innocent woman's life." Lysandra's voice grew stronger. "I will not be your puppet anymore." "Then you will be nothing." Ravenna raised her hand and one of her guards stepped forward. "Kale, dear, dispose of the traitor." Everyone went still. Kale did not move. His eyes shifted between his mother, Lysandra, and Theron, conflict warring across his features. "Mother," he said slowly, his voice cracking with doubt he could no longer hide. "Perhaps we should hear their evidence. I have wondered for years why Theron changed so suddenly. If the letters are genuine, if everything you told me was a lie." "The letters are lies." Ravenna's voice sharpened. "Do not tell me you are turning soft now. After everything I have done to secure your birthright? A birthright built on poison and manipulation?" Kale took a step back, his expression hardening. "I wanted to be king, Mother. But not like this. Never like this." The clearing erupted into chaos. Ravenna screamed a command, and her guards surged forward. But Kale moved faster, throwing himself between them and Theron's party, his own wolf emerging in a burst of gray fur and snapping teeth. "Kale!" Ravenna shrieked. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago." His voice emerged as a snarl, half human, half beast. "Ending your madness." The battle split into fragments. Theron's wolves clashed with Ravenna's guards while Seren fought her way toward the winter heart. Whatever that weapon was, she could feel it pulsing with malevolent cold, spreading frost across the ground, weakening every wolf who drew too close. She let her fire rise. Flames erupted along her arms, golden and fierce, cutting through the supernatural cold like sunlight through shadow. Guards scrambled away from her, their eyes wide with terror. They had expected a simple wolf, not a phoenix. Impossible. Ravenna's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with disbelief. "The phoenix bloodline was extinct. You should not exist. And yet here I am." Seren advanced on her, flames crackling with each step. Surprise. Ravenna's hand shot toward the winter heart. You think your fire can defeat this? This weapon has destroyed entire bloodlines. It was crafted from the heart of the first winter, forged in darkness older than your precious flames. She threw open the box. Cold exploded outward. Not ordinary cold, but something primordial, something that reached into the soul and froze it from within. Seren felt her fire gutter, felt ice creeping along her veins, felt the phoenix inside her cry out in pain. No, she gasped, falling to her knees. Yes. Ravenna stepped closer, her face twisted with triumph. Your fire was never a match for eternal winter. Nothing is. Through the creeping frost, Seren felt the bond pulse. Theron was fighting somewhere behind her, but his strength flowed toward her through their connection, warm and desperate. He was trying to reach her. He was trying to help. She grasped that warmth and held on. You are wrong, she gritted out. Fire alone cannot defeat winter. But I am not alone. She reached for the bond, not just drawing strength from it, but pouring herself into it. Everything she was, everything she felt, every spark of love and rage and desperate hope. She pushed it all toward Theron and felt him push back. Their fires merged. It was not just her phoenix blood anymore. It was the mate bond itself, burning with the combined power of two souls united completely. The flames that erupted from Seren were not golden but white-hot, blinding, terrible. The winter heart cracked. Ravenna screamed, stumbling backward as frost turned to steam around her. The box shattered, and from within, a shard of pure darkness emerged, something that should never have existed in a world of light and warmth. Seren did not hesitate. She reached into the flames and shaped them into a spear of white fire. Then she hurled it directly at the heart of the darkness. The impact was silent. A flash of light so bright it erased everything, and then nothing. Just stillness. When Seren's vision cleared, the winter heart was gone. Nothing remained but a scorched patch of earth where it had once rested. Ravenna stood frozen, her face slack with shock. Without the winter heart, she was just a woman, a manipulative, cruel woman, but nothing more. It is over, Theron said, appearing at Seren's side. His hand found hers, their bond still humming with shared power. Ravenna, you are charged with treason against the crown, attempted murder of the king and queen, and conspiracy to usurp the rightful heir. How do you plead? Plead? Ravenna laughed, but it was a broken sound. You expect me to grovel? To beg for mercy from a king who was too weak to see what was happening in his own court? I expect you to face justice. Theron's voice was cold. Guards, take her. Ravenna's own men did not move to defend her. With Kale standing openly against her and the winter heart destroyed, her power had evaporated. Two of Theron's wolves stepped forward, binding her hands with silver chains. This is not over, Ravenna hissed as they dragged her away. You think you have won, but you have only delayed the inevitable. The throne will never accept a phoenix as queen. They will turn on you eventually. They will... Her voice faded into the distance. Seren sagged against Theron, exhaustion crashing over her. The flames inside her had dimmed to embers, spent from the effort of destroying the winter heart. But beneath the weariness, she felt something else. Peace. Is it really over? She whispered. Almost. Theron pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. There is still the matter of bringing you home, of introducing our son to his kingdom, of rebuilding everything my stepmother destroyed. That sounds like a great deal of work. It is. He smiled, the expression reaching his eyes for the first time in years. But I cannot imagine doing it with anyone else. Kyle approached them slowly, his expression uncertain. He had shifted back to human form, and without his mother's influence, he looked younger, vulnerable. I owe you both an apology, he said quietly. I knew what she was doing was wrong, but I was too afraid to stop her. Too hungry for a crown that was never meant to be mine. Theron studied his half-brother for a long moment. You made mistakes, he said finally. But when it mattered, you chose the right side. That counts for something. Does it? It does to me. Theron extended his hand. We are brothers, Kale. That does not have to mean we are enemies. Kyle hesitated, then clasped his brother's hand. Something shifted between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of understanding. Lysandra hung back, watching the exchange with tears in her eyes. When Seren caught her gaze, she flinched as if expecting condemnation. Thank you, Seren said instead, for bringing us the letters, for standing against her. I do not deserve thanks. Lysandra's voice was thick with shame. I helped her hurt you. I believed her lies. You did. But you also helped stop her. Seren considered the other woman, seeing the genuine remorse in her expression. Redemption is not about erasing the past. It is about choosing differently in the future. Then I will spend the rest of my life choosing differently. Lysandra bowed her head. If you will allow me. Seren glanced at Theron, feeling his agreement pulse through their bond. We will allow it. But you will have to earn back trust. From both of us. I understand. The clearing was quiet now. Ravenna's guards had surrendered or fled, and the remaining wolves were tending to the wounded. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Let us go home, Theron said softly. Home. For the first time in 3 years, the word did not feel like a wound. Yes, Seren agreed, but first, we need to collect our son. The journey to retrieve Emmerich took 2 days. Marin had followed Seren's instructions perfectly, bringing the boy to a remote village where no one knew his name or his bloodline. When Seren finally reached them, Emmerich launched himself into her arms with a cry of relief. Mama! He buried his face in her neck. I was so brave, just like you said, but I missed you. I missed you too, my love. She held him tight, breathing in the scent of him, letting the reality of his safety wash over her. So much. Theron hung back, uncertain of his welcome. He had only met his son once, and that meeting had ended in terror and chaos. But Emmerich, ever curious, eventually wiggled free from Seren's embrace and approached the tall man watching them. Are you the one with eyes like mine? He asked. Theron knelt slowly, bringing himself to the boy's level. Yes, I am your father. Emmerich studied him with the serious intensity only children could muster. Mama said you were sick. Are you better now? I am. Thanks to your mother. She has fire in her. Emmerich nodded solemnly, as if this explained everything. I saw it once. It was pretty. It is, Theron agreed, his voice rough with emotion. The prettiest fire I have ever seen. Emmerich reached out and patted Theron's cheek with one small hand. You can come with us, he decided. Mama needs help carrying things anyway. The simplicity of a child's acceptance. Theron looked at Seren with tears in his eyes, and she smiled. You heard him, she said. You can come with us. They returned to Valdres as a family. The court was in upheaval when they arrived. News of Ravenna's arrest had spread quickly, and loyalties were shifting like sand. Some nobles who had supported her now scrambled to declare their faithfulness to the true king. Others watched with suspicion, waiting to see what would happen. Theron addressed the court with Seren at his side. 3 years ago, he began, his voice carrying through the great hall, I committed an unforgivable act. I publicly rejected my true mate. I called another woman my family. I allowed the queen to walk out of this hall alone and pregnant with my heir. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Many of them had not known about Emmerich. What you did not know, Theron continued, was that I was not acting of my own will. My stepmother Ravenna had poisoned me with winterbane, a substance that severs the connection between true mates. Every word I spoke that night was dictated by her poison, every cold glance, every cruel dismissal, all of it was her manipulation. Murmurs of shock and outrage filled the hall. Queen Seren fled to protect herself and our unborn child. She spent 3 years in hiding, raising our son alone, believing I had abandoned her. That ends today. Theron took Seren's hand, raising it for all to see. This is my true mate. This is your true queen. And this, he gestured toward Emmerich, who stood between them clutching Seren's skirt, is your crown prince. The hall erupted. Questions, exclamations, demands for proof. Theron produced the letters Lysandra had recovered, read key passages aloud, and called witnesses who had observed Ravenna's suspicious behavior over the years. By the time the sun set, the court had reached a consensus. Ravenna would face trial for her crimes. Seren would be restored to her rightful position as queen, and Emmerich would be recognized as the heir to the throne. The trial was held 1 week later. Ravenna entered the great hall in chains, her elegant composure finally cracked. She faced charges of treason, attempted regicide, conspiracy, and murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Letters in her own hand. Testimony from Lysandra, from Kale, from servants who had witnessed her plots. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" the chief magistrate asked. Ravenna lifted her chin, defiant to the end. "I did what was necessary for the good of the kingdom. Theron was a weak king, easily manipulated by common women with delusions of grandeur. I sought to protect the bloodline, to ensure the throne passed to someone worthy." "Someone worthy," the magistrate repeated. "You mean your own son. Kale would have been a strong king, stronger than his brother. And yet your own son testified against you." The magistrate shook his head. "Ravenna of Valdris, you have been found guilty on all charges. The sentence is death." Ravenna did not flinch. Even as guards led her away, her expression remained proud, unyielding. She believed until the end that she had been right. Seren watched her go, feeling nothing but emptiness. "It is over," Theron said quietly. "She cannot hurt us anymore." "I know." Seren leaned into him, letting his warmth anchor her. "But I cannot help wondering how many lives she destroyed, how much pain she caused, all for power. Power is a poison of its own kind." Theron kissed her temple. "But we do not have to let it poison us. We can be different." "Can we?" "We can try." 6 months later. Summer had come to Valdris, warm and golden, erasing the memory of winter's grip. The palace gardens bloomed with flowers Seren did not recognize, tended by gardeners who bowed when she passed and smiled at Emmerich's laughter. Her son was thriving. At 3.5, he had grown taller and bolder, charming the court with his curious spirit and stubborn determination. He called Theron Papa, now, a title that made the Alpha King's face light up every single time. Their bond had deepened in ways Seren had never imagined possible. The merge they had achieved in the frozen forest had not faded. If anything, it had grown stronger, weaving their souls together so completely that she could not imagine ever being alone again. "You are thinking deep thoughts." She turned to find Theron approaching across the garden, their son perched on his shoulders. Emmerich waved enthusiastically. "Mama, Papa says we can have honey cakes after dinner." "Does he?" Seren raised an eyebrow at her mate. "And who will deal with a sugar-crazed prince at bedtime?" "I will," Theron said, grinning. "I have been practicing my storytelling. I can tire him out in 3 tales, maybe 2 if I add dragon battles." "Dragon battles!" Emmerich bounced with excitement. "I want dragon battles!" Seren laughed, the sound surprising her. Laughter had come easier lately. So had joy. "Very well. Dragon battles it is." Later, after Emmerich had been fed and storied and tucked into bed, Seren stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, watching the stars emerge over Valdris. Theron joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured against her hair. "How different everything is." She leaned back into him. "A year ago, I was hiding in a mountain village, convinced I would spend the rest of my life running. Now I am queen. I have my mate. I have my son. I have everything? More than everything." She turned in his arms, looking up at his face, the face she had once believed she would never see again. "I never thought I could have this. I never thought I deserved it." "You deserve more than I can ever give you." His voice was fierce. "You endured 3 years of exile because of my failure. You raised our son alone. You saved my life with fire that should have killed you. I will spend the rest of my days trying to be worthy of you." "You already are." She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet. "You were worth waiting for. Worth fighting for. Worth burning for." "Burning for," he repeated, a smile tugging at his lips. "I rather like that. I thought you might." He pulled her closer, and the bond between them blazed with warmth. Not the desperate fire of survival, but something steadier. Something that would last. "I have news," she said against his mouth. "Something I have been waiting to tell you." He pulled back slightly, searching her face. "News?" Seren took his hand and pressed it against her stomach. "Emmerich is going to be a brother." The joy that erupted across Theron's features was blinding. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle, laughing with pure, unrestrained happiness. "A brother," he breathed when he finally set her down. "Another child. Our family grows." "Our family grows," she agreed, tears of happiness spilling down her cheeks. "No more curses. No more secrets. No more hiding. No more hiding," he promised. "Only this. Only us. Forever." She believed him. And as they stood together on the balcony, watching the stars wheel overhead, Seren finally understood what she had been searching for all those years alone. Not safety, not protection, not even love, though she had found that too. Home. She had found home. She had given him everything. Her heart, her body, her wolf, her very soul. And in return, the Alpha King had stood before his court with another woman at his side and declared, "This is my true family." Seren had not screamed. She had not wept. She had simply placed her hand over her stomach where his child grew, a secret she had been waiting to tell him that very night, and she had walked out of the great hall of Valdris without looking back. But she had been wrong about him, about everything. 3 years later, he found her. He fell to his knees before the son he never knew existed. He revealed the poison that had stolen his will, the curse that was killing him, the desperate search that had consumed every waking moment since she vanished. And she, the woman who had hidden her fire for fear of rejection, had burned away his chains and set them both free. Now the curse is broken. The villain has fallen. The family torn apart by lies has been reunited by truth. And the Alpha King finally understands what his true family looks like. It looks like her. It always did. Thank you for listening to this story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and they mean more than you know.